Hello, and welcome to Habits of Influence, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly side of being an entrepreneur. Joining us today, we have Mikki Meisner with Vibrant Health Wellness Center with over 27 years experience in the health and wellness industry.
Everything that happens is motivation.
Mikki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm super excited about this because I know from what I know about you in our different conversations, you are definitely somebody who likes to go against the grain and kind of just say things as they are. You don't candy coat, you don't BS it. You're a straightforward person. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Good.
So just to get our audience familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do and what got you started.
Well, let's start with what got me started. With a lot of people that I know in the wellness industry, illness got me started. And when I was 28, I was diagnosed with 4th stage cervical cancer. And they wanted to take all my parts out and cut, burn, and poison me. And I said, no, thank you. So I became an herbalist and legitimately went out into the woods and drug home forest products and made medicine out of them. And I'm really simplifying it, but I healed myself. It took me a year. And in that whole process, I realized that people needed to know this stuff. And so I apprenticed as an herbalist and I started a little company called Urban Wildflowers and started making teas and tinctures and salves and ointments and potions and lotions, and, would pop up booths at wellness fairs and bazaars and try to sell my, one customer said it really well. He said, "This looks like yard debris." And as you can imagine, it was really hard to get people to, stop eating meat and dairy and drink wormwood tea. So I was really going against the grain from the gate, as my doctor said, you're going to die. You're going to die. And I just said, no, thank you. What I didn't know at the time was 90% of women do die from what I was diagnosed with within the first year, with or without treatment. And I just said, no, thanks. I'm out, not making your Mercedes payment. And, I have a lot of tenacity, and I just decided, that's a clue. I just made that decision that I was going to live. I had a 6-week-old baby at that time. And so I became an herbalist. And as I went on, I realized that there's a lot of regulations with this that I, as making yard debris tea, I just wasn't aware of. So I kind of had to change my business model So at that time, that was 96, 97, I believe. And as I went on, I realized that going against the grain is a really hard business model. And there was so much education with people. So, people would hear my story and go, "Hey, Mikki, I have, the C word." I'm not actually allowed to use the C word in my wellness journey, which is super frustrating. Like I said, I do go against the grain, but, I would be mocking up here's your diet plan and here's your herb protocol. And as I was apprenticing at this little herb trader store, people would come in with the same issues, and, we'd mock up a tea and we'd give it to him. And one day he looked at, and I would be like, "Okay, clearly you have dairy issues. Get off dairy because your nose keeps running and blah, blah, blah." And he looked at me and he said, "You can't tell people that." I'm like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, 1, you're not a nutritionist. And 2, if they get well, we don't make any money." Okay, I'm out. I quit. That day I was like, okay, so I don't want to say no better than a doctor, but that was what went through my head. Like, I don't want to make money because people are sick. I want to actually help people and empower people. So in 2008, I discovered something called Kangen water, and I was really skeptical. When they told me about the business, I literally said, "No, thank you. Let me say no 3 times real quick and let's be done with this," is what I actually said to her. And, I drank the water and I was so amazed at what it could do. And I shared it with all my friends. And every time I shared it with someone, I just became more befuddled of what is this stuff and why does it do all of this stuff? And so I just really I couldn't stop, and I bought a machine not to get into the business, but the business did come with it. And since it was 2008 and the market was circling the drain, my now ex-husband was a contractor, general contractor, and we were flipping houses, and we had purchased a very beautiful house that needed a lot of work, and suddenly it was worth less than we paid for it, and we hadn't done any work. So I thought, well, I don't want to be homeless, so I guess I'm going into the water business. And so I just took it seriously. And in 2008, nobody was into wellness, and nobody had heard about this water, and it was not easy. And it's never been easy, but I was determined, and I actually did keep us from being homeless, just by sharing water and educating people. And I really learned that the more I work on me, the more I serve, the more I give, the more money I made. And it just kind of became this, I want to call it a vicious cycle, but it was just this, I was like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. The better person I become, the more money I make. Does this get any better?
Isn't it funny the way that works? Sometimes, and I want to go back to something you mentioned a little while ago where you were saying, about the C word that you don't like to talk about, and the medical industry, how they've really kind of skewed anything that's like naturopathic or homeopathic or natural things that actually prevent or cure illness. And it has become such a stigma of, you have to buy into the big pharmaceutical companies. You have to believe this. If you get this, you have to do these treatments. And those treatments aren't always successful. And sometimes they're more harmful than good.
The more I learn, the brattier I become. I'm not kidding you. Chemo works actually 2% of the time. And I joined this nonprofit called Kicking Cancer, and Baron Robinson, who's the founder of it, him and I, I'm on several of his podcasts, KSLM FM. Anyway, it's in Salem. And he just brings up these facts and pulls my string and says go. And the more I learn about the health industry, the more disgusted I become, and the more determined I am to really help people understand that they don't have to go with the mainstream protocol. What happens is, and I know this because 10 years later my cancer came back. I hate saying my cancer. Let me rephrase that. The cancer came back. This part of what I teach is, the verbology that we use, like we own our disease. But anyway, 10 years later, it came back, and I realized that wellness it's a lifestyle. It's a journey. It's a day by day decision that you make with everything you eat, all the thoughts you think, the people that you hang around with, your environment. And so I really got more into, the coaching aspect of how to help people take their power back, because you don't know what you don't know. And you get a diagnosis and you turn into this bobblehead, and you don't, but some people do.
You know me well enough to know that, I don't fall into that bobblehead stuff.
Yeah. So, just helping people understand what some of the options are. And go ahead.
So fast forwarding, here we are, 2023, and you have this wellness center.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what do you do in the wellness center? What do people gain from being around you? Or what are some of the things that I would say, what would be really important for people to know about either their own health journey, or, we got the why of what you do. It started from your own illness, and you kind of create your own path. But what's your mission? Why do you do what you do now? And what are some of the benefits of, what could you tell people?
Well, I am not here to give you good news about your bad habits. Doesn't make me very popular, but I am really here to enrich, inspire, and empower. I start with water because it makes up 75% of the equation, but it's not all we do. I'm really about helping people manage their inflammation and get out of pain and off medications, which is constantly getting me in trouble. I really wanted to take this to another level and reach more people. So I decided to open a wellness center and, create it around this amazing water that is, your body's 75% water. It's a really big piece of the puzzle. And I just felt like God wanted me to do this. So I found a place, and it's crazy expensive, and took 9 months for the build out. And literally 11 days after we got the doors open, COVID hit.
I remember that.
Wow. So I was like, okay, God, what the beep? And, we just decided, well, water's essential. We'll stay open. We'll keep serving people. We'd done a lot of marketing around it, and we just kept going, and somehow we survived. The Enagic, the corporate office, has given me just a ton of grief, partly because of COVID. The regulations have all changed, and the FDA is breathing down their neck, and now they're breathing down my neck. And so things that were okay to say 3 years ago are no longer okay to say. So, I opened a Kangen water store, and whoa, got in trouble. And so I turned it into the Good Water Store, and whoa, now I can't even have a website that talks about water, because by association, so I can't talk about I can't ever say the C word, because by association, they assume that, I use the water with cancer. I didn't, it came after, but by association. So then, just tired of fighting with corporate, I rebranded again. Actually, I don't even have a website right now. It's in the mix. But the Vibrant Health Wellness Center is where we've landed, because we are so much more than just water. And I just, you got to pick your battles, and I want to reach people in the biggest way possible. And so I don't want to fight with the people I'm trying to promote. So Vibrant Health Wellness Center it is.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, what I know about you, because I do know you beyond just the business world, you have massage therapists in there, you have other things, you have a sauna, you've got, different things that contribute to people's overall health and wellness. So it just makes sense that you're under that. Now, one of the things we like to talk about on this podcast is the ugly side of the business. So, I know you've had quite a bit of experience with the ugly side and some hurdles you've had to jump through. Anything you want to share? Let's say brand new entrepreneurs are out there listening to this podcast. What would you say would be really important for them to know? What would be some key things you would say, these are things you want to avoid or want to make sure you think about ahead of time or do your research on, or anything like that?
Okay. At the end of the day, we're all in sales, and most people hate sales. And the thing is when whatever you're selling, if you're coming at someone with what we call commission breath, you're not going to do very well. It's really about serving. And to me, that was the revelation. My blog was about sales, because nobody wants to be sold, right? You go to buy a car, and they're, you walk out paying twice what you thought you were going to pay, and you didn't even get what you wanted. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm in the people business, and I feel like anybody who's really doing it well understands that they're in the people business and they're here to serve. So when you understand that, then you're successful no matter which way it goes. Does that make sense?
It does. I always look at it, because I say the same thing with what we do. It's about educating. If you educate people, then they have the power to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And you brought up something a while back about kind of like being a sheep, like do what you're told. And that's one of the things I love about you is you go against the grain. You're not a do what you told person. You're like, no, I'm going to do my own research. No, I'm going to blaze my own path. I'll use my machete and cut the trees down myself. I don't need to follow what somebody else does. And that's something that I feel is really important, especially there's always going to be hoops you have to jump through. There's always going to be legalities that we have to follow in business.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we have to listen to everything that we're told. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we have so much information at our fingertips with the internet, with different trainers, with different coaches, and everyone, excuse my language, blows smoke up everyone's butt, right? Like they're all like, oh, if you follow my 3-step process, within 1 month, you'll be making 6 figures. And in 3 weeks, you'll be a millionaire. And it just drives everybody crazy.
Yeah.
And the overnight success thing, when we talked about that earlier in the podcast series, we really hit on that pretty hard. But knowing what you're doing and being, I love the fact you talk about serving people, because that's really important. And being in, this industry for 27 years, I believe it was 27 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes in the industry.
there's so many health coaches now and life coaches now, and I've been doing it for almost 30 years, and I never actually charged for it until recently. It just kind of, it flows out of me. It just kind of came with what I do. And you know, I've resisted it because I don't want to go with the flow. I don't want to be, part of the pack. I'm just a black sheep by nature. And which is why I say, I'm not the kind of coach that's going to give you good news about your bad habits. I'm not going to, I'll be your biggest cheerleader, but I'm going to call you on the mat. And, if you're not making choices that support you.
And what's interesting is because you were just referred to coaching, and like I don't know you as a coach. I know you as a person. I know you as a business, as a local business owner. I know you on a personal level. And I think coaching, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a byproduct of what you actually do.
It
Like
is.
you're
This is
like
why
like you don't label yourself a coach. You're not out there selling coaching packages or programs to people. You are in the industry of helping people get healthy. And as a byproduct, you do coaching, you do mentoring, you do share stories, you do trial and error stuff, you do kind of show people different ways as opposed to what the norm is.
Yeah. And because of, the business model of Kangen Water is direct sales. And, the business model of the garden towers that we sell is direct sales. The business model of the stem cell therapy patches is direct sales. And so, like I said, when I discovered that when I become a better person, I do better in business. That's a huge part of the business coaching. But there's also the business coaching of, how do you do this? How do you go and find people? How do you sell without selling?
And I think that's a big hurdle for people is they hear sales and they immediately think that car salesman, that car shark, the let me sell your left arm so you can pay for your right one. It's like it's just it's one of those things where we get so stuck in sales. And I feel like you really kind of opened up a big can of worms of when you serve people, the sales will come. Period.
The other piece of it is that my husband's office is here at the store. He's a video production guy. And, there's people say, oh, you're so lucky you guys get to work together. And we're incredibly blessed that we get to work together. And it comes with a lot of challenges. And we have a membership model. So we get to see the same customers over and over again. And it's amazing, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. Like we get really involved in people's lives and we get to know people really well. And, which is, I started Kangen Water 15 years ago, and 3 years ago, we opened the brick and mortar, two totally separate animals. Like the ugly of a brick and mortar, holy shit. It's hard. I had no idea what I was getting into. And, people are always like, oh, you should put a juice bar in here. Oh, you should do this. And like the logistics of it it's bananas.
So going off that, what would you say some of the biggest struggles are? What is the ugly? What is some of the ugly things you've seen? What are some of the biggest struggles you've had to overcome or hurdles you've had to jump through?
Just like permits and taxes and people that don't show up when they're supposed to show up. Like nobody's going to love your baby like you love your baby. And when you have a brick and mortar, you got to show up. There's days when I'm in there scrubbing the toilet and I'm ticked. I'm like, I shouldn't be scrubbing the toilet. I'm the queen bee in this place. And guess what? When you own a brick and mortar, you wear every hat in the beginning. And it's a good thing I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I did because my parents owned a grocery store when I was a kid, and being behind the counter, that's home. I love people. I can talk to people all day long. I don't mind showing up and, being in the same place until I want to go on vacation. Because it's, I got to find people to, and nobody is you, right? So I can find people that are passionate about what I do, but for them to take this on and really like, oh, see that the shelves need to be dusted or the toilet needs to be scrubbed because some wonderful customer left us a present. That's the ugly. That's the really, really hard.
Yeah, and it's funny because you talk about staffing, and that I think is a consistent issue everywhere right now is
Now,
finding
yeah,
people, and beyond finding people you can trust. And you hit the nail on the head. Nobody is you. When you're in your own business, you are the business and
yeah,
you are the owner. And unless you have some major model where you're scaling huge and like a franchise model or something, even then, as the owner, you are going to take a different perspective, a different look, and trying to hire people that are going to see your mission, vision, and values, and being able to create that culture. It's still, they're not going to pay attention to the details because it's not theirs. They don't own it. They're not as in the game. They don't have the skin in the game that you do. It's a
yeah,
job. They're
yeah.
not the business owner.
And I
And
feel like when you are, and it took me years to like understand this about myself, but when you're part of that 2% that is motivated and determined and you're just unstoppable, you think everybody's like that, and they're just not.
that's
And
very
that's,
true.
it's really, you can't want more for someone than they want for themselves. I realize that I can't take somebody else's health more seriously than they will take it, nor can I take their business more seriously than they'll take it. And for me, that's been the hardest part because I'm so driven by people and results. And, I'm excited when other people win. I'm excited when they make a sale. I'm excited when, somebody's pain goes away. I'm like, I'm your greatest cheerleader. But other people just don't have that. Not other people, not everybody has that energy, and that's hard to wrap your head around when you do.
It's very difficult. Um, if there was a piece of advice or something you would say to new business owners, is there anything you would encourage them to think about or look at or do?
Buckle up, buttercup, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. This is not for the faint of heart. But it's if you love people and if you love to serve, you'll succeed, because if that's your why, then you won't stop. And what I have found is that there have been blocks every step of the way, and you just have to learn to be like water, go with the flow, go around, find a way. And tenacity and determination are probably my greatest attributes. My stubbornness. Yeah.
That's great. And I love how you went back to the water, be like water. And
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, I remember hearing a quote. He has a whole quote about being like water,
Yeah.
and water will, put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. Put water in a bottle, it becomes a bottle.
Yeah.
Be like water, be fluid, being able to flow. It's great. And I think I would agree with you on the entrepreneurial side. Is it does kick your butt.
Yeah.
You are going to be working longer hours than everyone else. You are going to be sacrificing nights, weekends, holidays. You're going to be, up to your ears, up to your head, underwater sometimes, and feeling like you
Yeah.
can't even breathe. And that is reality. And I mean, and I would say, like, you and I are very similar in, we're both local businesses, and I know you probably do things wider because you can sell product,
National.
where
Yeah.
where I'm more of a service-based business. But like, there are people who are probably maybe listening to this who are in different countries, or who um maybe have an online market, and they don't get to have that personal touch. They don't get to maybe even interact with their customers. So is there anything you would say to people like that who are, maybe they have an online business or an e-commerce business, or something along those lines? What would you say is, hey, you know what, these are things you need to be aware of?
I would say even though they're not meeting with them, physically, it's still about the relationship. Like, I'm sure you've got this, a DM. Hey, I know we haven't met, but I've got this great thing. You'd be really good at this. Or like, stop, get to know people, make it about the relationship before you try to sell them something.
It's funny you say that, because you recently met Maria. She does that when she does some online orders. She always throws in something extra. So they put their order in, and then she'll make a little extra gift to give them. And when she sends stuff out, she sends out a little, hey, thank you. Here's a little something extra for you. You
At the
know,
end of the day, people are falling in love with you. They're buying you, not your product. And, when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I remember my coach said, be a product of the product. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, for the water business, it means you got to drink the water, you got to love the water, you know. But really, if your business at the end of the day is people and you're in service, being a product of the product means, how can I serve? How can I help you? And when you approach whatever you're selling or whatever you're doing in life, when you have that heart, you can't not succeed.
I would agree with you. And I think it's so important to focus on that, of how we're helping people in general.
Especially now with the temperature and the, the political and the, Voldemort, like certain things that you can't even say. I would say, just people talk a lot about being authentic, but I don't think they really know what that means. Really leading from the heart and being not vulnerable as in I'm going to share all of my trash on Facebook, but vulnerable in the way that I'm going to be really real with you, so that, like, in a really authentic way, to give you permission to be real with me. Like, authentic meaning I really do love people. I really do want to help people.
And you said something, gotta remember what it was. Oh, about the product and the service piece. And I was going to touch on this because your main business is water.
Yeah.
I could turn my faucet on and get water. Why do I come to you? And that's a really big thing, is it's not just about the product.
Yeah.
You are educating people, and we all know that, at least here in the States, tap water is horrible. I'm not sure about other places, but I know where we're at, it's absolutely horrible. And I've followed water for years. My mom sold water filtration back, when I was a kid. I've done my own research on it. There's a lot of stuff in the water that people don't even know about.
Yeah. It looks like water, but be careful. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and we sell, whole house filters and point of use filters in addition to the Kangen water systems, because there's a lot of crap in the tap. And yeah, education.
And on that, I would encourage anybody listening right now, do your research on stuff. Don't just believe what somebody says. Don't just believe what Mikki says. Don't believe what I say. Don't believe what other people tell you. Do research. Go out there, find information.
And on that note, Ian, let me put a plug in here, because a lot of times people, they put something into the Google and they think that's research. That's an opinion, and Google is always trying to sell you something. It's designed to give you more of what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something and you've got a pro and a con, right? This one's for it and this one's against it. This one likes red and this one likes blue. Whichever one you click on, Google's going to give you more of that. So at the end of your research, you're going to go, I'm convinced that I'm right. Are you? Things aren't always what they seem. And I'm going to challenge you to go into the Google and put in Google Scholar, type that in, and then hit enter. And now you have a whole different search engine without ads. Most people don't know that. And so they're just putting things into the Google, the almighty Google, and, taking that as word.
I'm glad you brought that up. The Google Scholar piece is great, and that's maybe we can add that in a link somewhere down below once this gets published. And definitely thank you so much for jumping on. Before we close out, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, if somebody wanted to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
So my email is yourwaterlady@gmail.com. And my website, once it's up and running, will be vibranthealthwellnesscenter.com.
And by the time this podcast gets aired, it might, you might have that live, which, it might be a few weeks out, who knows, and do you have any like online presence? Do you have any like Instagram or Facebook or anything like that?
Yeah. And right now it's the Good Water Store. Probably going to change that to Vibrant Health Wellness Center. God help me. But the Good Water Store on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're all over the place. And the goodwaterstore.com, all of them are going to take you to the same place. So we're just going to redirect that to the Vibrant Health Wellness Center. So you can find me, Mikki Meisner. I'm all over the place.
Mikki, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. I certainly appreciate it. And we'll make sure when this gets aired, and you'll get copies of it. You rock. Thank you so much. Those of you who are tuning into Habits of Influence, Remember, we air this podcast every week, so tune in for more information, tips, tricks, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Ian.